I always pictured betrayal as something loud, screaming tires, shattering glass, a slam no one could ignore. Instead, it arrived on a sleepy March morning in Minneapolis wearing my father's pressed navy suit and my mother's perfect lipstick smile sliding over airport carpet so softly, the Sky Club receptionist never looked up. The sun hadn't melted last night's snow yet. You could still smell road salt on everyone's boots. Dad held the Bora Bora brochures like a surgeon clutching x-rays, one hand, precise, detached. Mom floated beside him in cream cashmere, humming some top 40 song she'd memorized for a gala playlist, fingers tapping the beat on her phone screen, as if the world were just another event waiting to be curated. Grandpa Bob shuffled 2 steps behind us, skinny frame swallowed by his favorite plaid flannel and navy cardigan, clutching the wedding photo of him and Grandma outside Old Duluth City Hall. December 1970, Lake Superior, glittering like tinsel behind them. I'd checked the photo twice before we left the house, made sure the edges were still taped so the cracked glass wouldn't cut his thumb when he rubbed it for luck. Something he did whenever Minnesota winters felt too long. Dad's smartwatch buzzed security clearance, approved flight gate, confirmed weather in French Polynesia, a balmy 84 degrees. "Stay on schedule," he murmured, mostly to himself, the way he tells residents during morning rounds. I walked next to Grandpa, matching his slow steps. He hummed Bob Dylan off-key but earnest, and tapped his coffee cup twice, ding-ding, the ritual that means I'm still here. For a second, the hum echoed under the glass roof, mingling with boarding calls and rolling suitcases, and I thought, maybe we really will make one last memory together. Then Mom's voice, sweet as maple syrup, sharp as a chisel, cut through. "Z, do us a favor, darling, cappuccinos extra foam. Your grandfather can sit right here." She pointed to a leather armchair in the quiet corner of the G Concourse Lounge, away from the TVs, facing a model Delta jet sealed in plexiglass. Dad guided Grandpa down, bent at the waist in his best bedside manner crouch. "Just sit tight, Dad. Catherine and I will check us in and come right back." The sentence landed like a scalpel on sterile gauze, clean, deliberate, leaving almost no blood. Grandpa nodded, thumb tracing the photo frame, though his gaze lingered on the runway where snowplows were carving white dust off tarmac. I hesitated. A cello string of unease tightened in my ribs. Dad noticed. His eyes flicked from the wall clock to me, steel blue and impatient. "Go on, Zoe. We're a minute behind." I walked toward the espresso bar, sneakers squeaking. Behind me, the lounge door sighed shut, muffling Grandpa's humming. As the barista foamed milk, I kept checking over my shoulder, just travelers scrolling phones, a toddler chasing her rolling monkey suitcase. No Mom, no Dad. The cappuccinos finished. I set them on the counter untouched. My phone buzzed. "Gate change?" Dad's text read G15. "Meet us there." I frowned. Our original gate was already G15. A second buzz. "Hurry, sweetheart." Something icy crawled up my spine. I abandoned the drinks and jogged back toward Grandpa. His chair was still there, but the seat beside him, Dad's coat, Mom's tote were gone. Grandpa stared at the snow outside, tapping an empty coffee cup that hadn't been filled. My pulse sprinted. 5 minutes, 10, no familiar voices, no crisp navy suit, no cream cashmere. Just that tired old man and me and the distant rumble of jet engines swallowing every excuse I might have believed. I tried Dad's number. Voicemail. Mom's phone rang, once clicked to a recorded event planning services greeting. My fingers shook so hard I dropped the phone. Grandpa finally looked over. "Z. They off scouting the boat." He meant the cruise he took with Grandma in '88. Time folded on him like that now. I knelt, forcing a smile. "They're just sorting tickets. Let's stretch our legs, okay?" He nodded, trusting, because Grandpa always believed in good exits, tidy endings. The hero never abandoned mid-page. Outside the lounge, the concourse buzzed, brighter, harsher. Departure boards flickered rows of on time. My parents were nowhere. I marched to a Delta kiosk. "Is Jonathan Miller still pending check-in?" The agent typed, frowned. Checked in 20 minutes ago. Final boarding in 12. All 3 names she confirmed, even Grandpa's. My vision tunneled. The fluorescent lights whined. They had planned this. They had used his name to clear security, escort him inside, then slipped past him like surgeons, leaving a closed incision. I felt a roar in my ears, violin strings snapping applause from old competitions suddenly meaningless. Grandpa coughed softly. The roar stopped. His confusion filled the silence. "Am I late for class, kiddo?" he asked the history teacher, still somewhere behind his clouded eyes. "No, Grandpa." I swallowed the lava in my throat. "But we're changing lesson plans." I grabbed his hand, cold, calloused, still strong from decades of sanding cedar, and steered him toward the elevators. Every step felt like tearing a page from the life script Dad had written for us. Perfect resume, daughter. Perfect reputation. Parents disposable, elderly detail. I was done reading from their lines. My phone vibrated again. "Stay put. We'll explain later. Trust us." That single sentence crystallized everything trust measured in their convenience. I texted back one word. "No," then switched the phone off. The elevator doors opened. "Where to now?" Grandpa whispered, breath fogging. I squeezed his shoulder. "North," I said, picturing the schedule I'd memorized last night in a swirl of insomnia. Jefferson lines, 9:10 a.m. MSP to Duluth to Ashland. Aunt Diane's porch light would already be on even in daylight. She always said hope is a lamp you never switch off. We stepped into the elevator. As the doors slid shut, a last boarding call echoed overhead. "Final passengers for flight DL-879 to Los Angeles. Connect to Pepite, please proceed immediately." Dad's voice lived inside that announcement. Even if he never spoke it, "Hurry, keep up, don't ruin the image." The elevator whispered downward. I looked at Grandpa clutching his photo snow-gray hair falling over kind eyes that once spotted constellations for me during summer campouts. He smiled faintly. "Long field trip, huh?" I nodded. Outside the glass shaft, the runway stretched white into the horizon like blank paper waiting for someone brave enough to write a different ending. The bell dinged. Baggage claim level. Cold air knifed through the revolving doors. Snow spiraled like ash from an unseen fire. I'd left the script behind upstairs, but I could still feel its weight trying to drag me back. Could I really outrun Doctor's authority, event planner, spin control, the entire polished machinery of the Miller name? Grandpa squeezed my fingers twice like tapping his mug. "Hey, Z. Yeah, good stories," he murmured, voice shaky, but certain never abandon their heroes. The airport loudspeaker crackled again, muffled, distant, but I was no longer listening. I lifted my chin, scanning the curb for a bus sign. It was now or never. And if betrayal had been quiet, then rescue would have to be thunder. A sharp horn blared, airport shuttle braking too close, and I yanked Grandpa backward just in time. Tires hissed on slush. Adrenaline jolted through me louder than any horn, louder than Dad's voicemail inside my pocket. Somewhere above us, airplanes roared skyward, carrying careless promises toward turquoise seas. Down here, on frozen ground, I tightened my grip on the only promise that mattered. I would not let the story abandon its hero. Not this hero. Not this time. Cold air slapped my cheeks the moment the terminal doors spat us onto the pickup lane, and it tasted of jet fuel rock salt, and that particular Minneapolis tang of half-melted snow. Grandpa squeezed my hand like a kid afraid of deep water. His knuckles were ice cubes. Across the lanes, a Jefferson Lines logo flashed on an idling coach white pine against emerald. But the driver was already stowing bags, and a digital clock on the dash screamed 09:05, 5 minutes to departure. Between us and that bus flowed a restless river of taxis, hotel shuttles, and travelers waving ride-share phones like neon wands. I searched for a brake heart pounding against my ribs like a woodpecker. If Dad's security alert had reached airport police, they'd look for a confused older man escorted by a jittery 19-year-old. We were practically a headline waiting to happen. A shuttle screeched curbside, blocking sightlines, and I yanked Grandpa behind its bulk breath frosting. He coughed a thin, papery sound, then looked up, sudden panic flashing. "Z, did we miss roll call?" That's what he asked his 6th graders before pop quizzes decades ago in Duluth. "Not yet." "Teach," I whispered, tugging him forward the instant the shuttle pulled away. We dashed through exhaust fog. My sneakers hydroplaned on slush, nearly pitching me into a storm drain. I felt Grandpa's weight shift. His balance was never the same after last winter's hip scare. Instinct over thought, I swung the violin-hardened muscle of my left arm around his back, steadying him, praying ligaments wouldn't tear under the strain. Across the last lane, a horn howled, and a rideshare Tesla fishtailed to a stop inches from the white line. The driver's window slid down. A man in a Navy airport operations badge glared. "Hey, watch where you," words froze as he noticed Grandpa's trembling. Some part of him softened, but I couldn't risk conversation. "Medical emergency, sir, sorry," I shouted, channeling the polished urgency I'd heard Dad perform for donors. The badge holder lifted his radio maybe to call for real medical help. No time. I propelled Grandpa across the painted Arrow's boots, splashing grit. The bus door was folding shut. "Wait," my voice cracked like a snapped string. The driver, a stocky woman with Vikings knit cap, looked down, eyebrow arched. "Ticket." I waved 2 QR codes on my phone, pulse thrumming. She scanned, glanced at Grandpa. His breath fogged the glass eyes wide and lost. Something in her expression changed. Maybe she'd watched a parent fade too. With a quick nod, she lowered the lift ramp. As hydraulics moaned, my phone vibrated again, Dad's caller ID. I pictured him striding toward some gate agent, tongue sharpened by entitlement. Decline, airplane mode. The ramp kissed pavement. I guided Grandpa onto the first step. Behind us, the operations man shouted, "Miss, everything okay?" The driver shot back, "They're with me, Gary. Let 'em be." Doors folded. We lurched from the curb, snow swirling in our wake like shredded pages. Inside smelled of stale coffee and pine-scented cleaner. Only a handful of passengers, college kid in earbuds couple arguing over snow tires, businesswoman mouth-typing a presentation. I eased Grandpa into row 4 aisle so I could guard both him and the exit. His hands refused to unclench from the photo. Glass caught morning light, scattering prisms across ceiling panels. My lungs finally remembered to breathe. Yet adrenaline quickly swapped for dread. Delta would soon discover a no-show after check-in security might ping local law. Harboring an elderly man suspected missing, how would that play? I needed cover. I opened my backpack, yanked out Grandpa's wool hat, tugged it low, then slipped my own hoodie up. If cameras scanned the bus, they'd see just 2 tired Minnesotans heading north for pasties and snowshoes. Road salt crackled under tires as we merged onto I-35. Minneapolis skyline receded, glittering ambition turned gray by distance, and white pine forest started its slow march. Grandpa leaned his head against the window, eyelids fluttering. "Pretty river," he mumbled. I looked. Only frozen marsh. His mind's projector was replaying a reel from '72. I rested my violin-calloused fingers on his forearm, grounding us both. My body buzzed with unasked-for courage, like stepping onto recital stage with a piece half memorized. Too late to sight read now. Half an hour north, the driver announced a quick fuel stop in Forest Lake. Passengers shuffled off for gas station coffee. I debated supplies versus staying invisible. Grandpa stirred, confused, when the engine cut. I spoke softly. "Pit stop, coach. Need anything?" He blinked, recognition flickering. 2 taps of sugar. My throat tightened. The ritual. I nodded, jogging down the aisle. In the shop, fluorescent buzz mixed with cinnamon roll steam. I grabbed cocoa packets, peanuts, a map reel paper in case batteries died, and at the counter the clerk smirked at my shaking hands. "Roads, slick families, complicated," I said. He chuckled like he'd been there. Back on board, Grandpa accepted the cocoa cup, tapped the lid twice, sipped, and relaxed. I opened the paper map marking our zigzag MSP airport, then Duluth interchange, then the sliver of Highway 2 curling along Superior toward Ashland. Under the gaudy state outline lay a penciled thought: a good story never abandons its hero. I'd written it at 3 a.m., one part mantra, one part challenge to myself. I tucked the map in Grandpa's cardigan pocket. If anything happened to me, bathroom line too long, trooper too nosy, he'd carry our compass. Phone still on airplane mode. I considered turning it back just to confirm Dad hadn't unleashed an Amber Alert-style silver alert. But the screen stayed black. Safety in silence. Outside, scenery shifted: birch trees wearing armor of hoarfrost frozen lakes, where snowmobile tracks crisscrossed like kid crayon lines. Somewhere up there, Aunt Diane's porch swing creaked in anticipation. Mid-journey, a sudden thump rattled the floor. A suitcase had toppled in the luggage rack, but Grandpa jerked awake, panic dilating his pupils. Incoming, he shouted, a battlefield reflex. The businesswoman jumped. I grabbed his shoulders, whispered, "It's just a bump, Grandpa. We're safe." He stared, breaths shallow. Then slowly, his gaze anchored to my face. "Z." I nodded. Relief softened his features. He fell back asleep. Across the aisle, Earbuds Kid pulled one bud, offered me a half smile of sympathy. I mouthed thanks. The moment held a fragile solidarity, strangers recognizing the invisible labor of loving someone whose timeline glitches like a scratched record. Duluth skyline appeared mid-snow squall lift bridges, ghostly against leaden sky. The bus hissed into the station. Announcement: 20-minute layover. My pulse spiked. Bigger station meant more cameras. Still, we needed a bathroom break and maybe real food. I draped Grandpa's VA cap over his hat, instant respect shield, looped my arm through his, and descended into exhaust clouds. Inside Terminal Cafe hockey game on mute, I ordered wild rice soup and split it, spoon-feeding Grandpa when Tremor stole his aim. An old vet in bomber jacket raised 2 fingers in salute. Grandpa reflexively saluted back, soup still on his chin. The vet walked over, gentle smile. "Charlie Company." Grandpa blinked, lost, then brightened, Delta 68. They chatted in shorthand, only soldiers understand, but each sentence flickered like a dying bulb. When words failed, the vet patted Grandpa's shoulder. "Safe travels, brother." He looked at me, eyes misting. "You keep the faith, kid." His tone held weight, the faith that society too often forgets its elders. Back on the coach, snow thickened. Night would beat us to Ashland at this rate. I peered out at steel gray Lake Superior, appearing beside the highway, breathing like a sleeping giant. Lights on my phone blinked, roaming signal, catching Canada. Against better judgment, I switched cellular on. Immediately, a backlog: 17 texts, 5 missed calls, 2 voicemails. First voicemail. Dad's voice, tightly leashed. "Zoe, airport security alerted us you're with Grandpa. Call me. We can resolve this without anyone getting hurt." The phrasing chilled me. Anyone getting hurt, as if love were a liability. Second voicemail. "Mom, tear-splintered sweetheart, your father's furious, but I just want you safe. Please." Guilt pricked, but then I pictured Grandpa alone in that lounge chair photo, slipping from numb fingers, and guilt calcified into resolve. I archived the messages. Snowplows flashed amber ahead, funneling traffic into one lane. Bus crawl slowed to 30. The driver muttered about black ice on County 13. ETA to Ashland pushed from 2 to 3 p.m. Anxiety gnawed Diane would be at the station. If we were late, she might fear the worst. I typed a quick update, but frozen service balked message pending. A low whistle blew from engine bay. Temperature gauge inched to red. The driver pulled onto a turnout perched above the lake, hazard lights strobing. "Radiator lines iced," she announced. "Gotta thaw it. Sit tight 15 minutes if we're lucky." Passengers groaned. My heart hammered. Stalled bus, remote highway, cellular dead zone. That's a search and rescue dream for any determined, well-connected neurologist with law enforcement pals. I imagined Dad's Tesla already blasting North Digital toll receipts pinging. 15 minutes suddenly felt like a trap. I weighed options: stay on a powerless bus or brave blizzard with a frail veteran. Neither sane, both risky. Earbuds. Kid scrolling news muttered, "Whoa, silver alert for Robert Miller, age 78, last seen MSP." My blood chilled. He looked up, noticing Grandpa. Eyes widened. That him? Everyone turned. Curiosity crackled. Driver's head popped. "Something you want to explain?" I stood, voice trembling, yet loud enough. "Yes, this is Robert Miller, my grandfather. The alert is because his own son tried to abandon him at the airport. I'm taking him to his sister in Ashland." Silence slammed the aisle. Businesswoman opened her mouth, closed it. The driver studied my face, then Grandpa's haunted eyes. After a beat, she said, "Engine can't thaw itself while we jaw. Folks, restroom breakout back if you need it. Let's give these two some space." Conversation swelled again, softer, sympathetic. I sank back beside Grandpa, adrenaline draining until knees shook. Snow beat the windows like angry moths. In the distance, the lake's dark expanse merged with sky boundary, blurred water, ice cloud becoming one. Grandpa placed his hand over mine, knuckles brushing violin calluses. He didn't speak, didn't need to. The gesture said, "I choose you." Outside, hazard lights kept pulsing red, a heartbeat against the whiteout, and I realized this stalemate could last hours' time. My father might close. Then, through the hiss of wind, another sound rose, faint sirens growing louder. Blue-red strobes flickering down the highway curve toward our stranded coach. Snowflakes swirled in the hazard strobes like shaken glitter, turning the stalled coach into a blinking ornament on the edge of Highway 2. The sirens drew closer, icy wails slicing wind until two Wisconsin State Trooper SUVs slewed onto the shoulder tires, chewing slush. Inside the bus, conversations died. Even Earbud's kid slipped his phone into his pocket. I felt my pulse echo the flash pattern outside. Blue, red, blue. Grandpa's eyes fluttered open. "Fire drill," he whispered, half joking, half afraid. I squeezed his hand, fingertips numb. "Just routine, coach." I lied through my teeth, hearing doors slam and boots crunch toward us. The driver popped the pneumatic seal. Frost and authority spilled in. Lead trooper, tall, ruddy-cheeked, late 40s, stepped aboard, snow crusting his Stetson. His nameplate read Olson. He scanned faces, landing on Grandpa's VA cap and my wired-tight posture. "Afternoon, folks. Silver alert issued out of Minneapolis. We're verifying welfare." Polite, rehearsed, but the badge gleamed like a gavel. Around us, passengers watched, some curious, some sympathetic, none willing to intervene again. I stood, heart jackhammering. I'm Zoe Miller, his granddaughter, legal caregiver in transit to his sister's home in Ashland. My parents filed that alert because they disagreed with our travel. Olson lifted an eyebrow, half civil servant skepticism, half human curiosity. Identification. My wallet emerged with student ID and Minnesota license. And him? Grandpa fumbled. Tremor made the photo slip. I caught it before glass shattered. Under the picture lay his veteran card. Olson accepted it, softening when he read Vietnam service. Second trooper, younger, radio crackling, leaned in. Dispatch confirms Dr. Jonathan Miller requested intervention due to abduction concerns. Doctor says father's mental state compromises consent. The words stabbed. Dad had weaponized his reputation like a scalpel again. Olson studied Grandpa. "Sir, do you know where you're headed?" Grandpa blinked at snowy glass, searching memory like misfiled index cards. Ashland, Diane's porch swing, clear as sunrise. Relief flooded me, lucid moment when we needed it. Olson nodded, thoughtful. "That checks Sister Sanders lives East 4th Street, correct?" I exhaled. He'd run a quick database cross. "But procedure is gravity. Miss Miller, until guardianship is verified, I must escort you both off the bus. We'll warm up in my SUV, head to the county station. Paperwork won't take long if everything's square. Station delay Dad's lawyers. My mind flashed worst-case chain reaction, emergency conservatorship, Grandpa locked in facility by nightfall. I opened my bag, pulled out the thumb drive, Diane preloaded, notarized POA, updated trust, VA clinic letters. All documents here. Olson's partner took it to the cruiser to email dispatch. 5 agonizing minutes later, he returned, puzzled. Files legit, Lieutenant. Notarized 2 months ago, unchallenged. Olson scratched his chin, snowflakes melting on wool collar. Seems you're within the law, but alert's still live. Until it's canceled, every patrol north of Superior will stop you. I can clear it only if a responsible adult at destination signs acceptance in person. My shoulders sagged. We were 30 miles out, radiator still frozen, storm thickening. Earbuds, kid blurted. Her aunt could meet us halfway. Murmurs of support rippled. Businesswoman reached into briefcase, produced a portable hotspot. Email the trooper your aunt's consent. They can video verify. For a second, community overrode bureaucracy, American ideal I'd nearly given up on. Trooper Olson weighed options against swirling snow, liability or compassion. Finally, he radioed dispatch, proposing field lift pending video verification. Static, then reluctant approval. My thumbs flew, typing, Diane need FaceTime with trooper now. Can you 3 dots? Then her lined, steady face filled my screen. Behind her, the porch swing rocked, snow piling on its slats like silent applause. She answered questions, addressed medical routines, intent to supervise. Olson's features softened further. Maybe he imagined his own mother in Diane's calm resolve. He signed a temporary clearance, scrawled badge number, and addressed the driver. Once engines good, deliver them straight to Ashland Station. Radio me when they're offloaded. He stepped off, leaving a pocket of fragile hope. But bureaucracy has a long tail. As he descended, my phone buzzed email from Dr. Jonathan Miller, Ceasing Hospital Counsel. Emergency petition for protective placement filed, St. Louis County. Hearing 10 a.m. tomorrow. Return father immediately to avoid contempt. Dad moved fast. His empire ran on expedited privileges. I tasted copper fear. Even with Olson's clearance, a court order could yank Grandpa into custody before sunrise. The bus lurched. A live driver had thawed the line with spare antifreeze. Passengers cheered faintly. Snow still hammered windshield, but we rolled. I tucked the email into digital shadows. Grandpa didn't need that cloud. Instead, I pulled out the real paper map, traced finger along shoreline. See this curve, coach? That's where the Edmund Fitzgerald went down. Grandpa's gaze sharpened. He'd taught maritime disasters to 8th graders. Hold fast, he murmured, quoting Gordon Lightfoot. Our bus hummed deeper into flurries, following a ghost freighter's path, symbol of lives swallowed by complacency. Signal returned near Iron River. Diane's line rang through. Z court clerk friend tipped me. Your dad filed under emergency elder neglect, claims you're unstable. Judge Olson presiding, she's tough on family disputes. Diane's breaths came quick. We need counter affidavits tonight. I'm drafting, but I'll need Grandpa's video testimony again, time-stamped. Storm outside lawsuit, incoming radiator still dicey. Adrenaline reignited. We'll be there within 90, I promised, ignoring engine knock. 20 miles out, the driver radioed she had to reduce speed, ice glaze on Black River Bridge. Time bled away with each cautious mile. Grandpa dozed, mouth forming silent words. Maybe lesson plans. Maybe goodbye letters. I filmed him anyway. Timestamp overlay. Glowing my questions. Gentle. Who am I? Where are we going? Do you want to stay with Diane? His answers faltered, but intent shone. Z's heart, safe. Good enough for a judge who still believed humanity trumped perfection. Night fell like a curtain. Only our headlights tunneled. At last, Ashland's welcome sign emerged, snow-caked but merciful. Bus brakes hissed at the tiny station, a box of yellow light against Black Lake. Diane waited under awning clipboard in mittened hand cheeks, wind-burned resolve burning hotter. Passengers clapped as Grandpa stepped onto icy pavement VA cap askew. He smiled, recognizing Sister's silhouette. Di made the bell. She hugged him, tears freezing on scarves. Relief lasted exactly 3 seconds. Across the lot, a dark sedan idled, engine low, windows tinted. Its headlights snapped on, sweeping us like a searchlight. My phone pinged a final notification: GPS ping request approved by carrier. Dad was tracking my line now. The sedan door cracked open. A figure in hospital-issue parka stepped out, cell phone pressed to ear, blue badge lanyard catching station light. Dad has arrived in Ashland, armed with legal muscle and a ticking court clock. Can Zoe, Diane, and their fragile evidence protect Grandpa through the night, or will the system bulldoze their refuge before dawn? Dad's silhouette stepped into the station light, breath fogging, as if the night itself objected to his presence. Behind him, a woman in a charcoal trench coat slammed the sedan door. I recognized her from hospital fundraisers, Lauren Caldwell, legal counsel, with eyes like unsweetened tea. Diane instinctively eased Grandpa behind her parka padded frame. My pulse ricocheted. The lake wind sliced through every layer. Zoe, Dad called, voice genteel enough to fool strangers. Let's resolve this indoors. A passing depot attendant eyed the tension, decided to keep sweeping salt. We followed them into the tiny waiting room. Fluorescent tubes hummed like angry hornets above laminate benches. Dad produced a manila envelope the way he'd once flicked lollipops from his white coat pocket after my violin recitals. Emergency protective placement, Caldwell announced, sliding forms across a vending machine table. Judge Olson signed at 4:57 p.m. Your grandfather is to be transferred to Twin Cities Memory Haven by 0700. Grandpa blinked, tugging his cardigan. Another field trip. The innocent question lanced me. I drew a breath, tasting rust. He's staying with family, I said. Voice shaking, but louder than Dad expected. Diane stacked her notarized packet next to theirs. Power of attorney predates your petition. Wisconsin statute gives priority to the principal's chosen agent. Caldwell smiled a lawyer's thin smile. Unless the court finds the agent unfit. Your niece kidnapped a vulnerable adult across state lines in a blizzard. Dad's eyes flicked to Grandpa's trembling hands, exploiting every tremor. He needs professional care, not amateur heroics. For one surreal heartbeat, I wanted to surrender, let white-walled facility swallow responsibility, sleep 8 hours again. Then Grandpa tapped the photo frame twice, soft but sure. Ding ding, symbol of staying. My spine straightened. Professional. You left him in an airport lounge. The words rang off cinderblock. Dad flushed storm clouds behind gray-blue irises. Caldwell lifted a phone. Sheriff's transport will be here within the hour. Step aside. On cue, Trooper Olson pushed through the door, snow dust on shoulders. Hold up. This jurisdiction's Ashland County, not St. Louis. Until Judge Olson confirms with our circuit, that order's paperweight. Caldwell bristled. Dad opened his mouth. Olson cut him off. Dr. Airport CCTV shows you exiting without your father. That muddies protective. I'll radio Judge Olson for clarification, but until then, Mr. Miller remains with his designated agent. He nodded at Diane. Relief swelled, but Olson added, Court wants him in Bayfield Courthouse 10 a.m. sharp. If you're a no-show warrant triggers statewide. The ultimatum settled like fresh snow, pretty heavy, inescapable. Dad pocketed the envelope mask of civility back in place. See you in the morning, Zoe. Dress warm, Camber's ice early. He and Caldwell left taillights bleeding red across the lot. The depot clock clicked 8:52 p.m., 8 hours to gather ammunition and keep Grandpa calm. We hustled him into Diane's Subaru heater, wheezing. Cabin sat 5 miles out, a cedar box at the lake's edge. Snowflakes danced in headlights, hypnotic confetti. Inside wood stove glowed orange. The smell of balsam punched nostalgia into my lungs. Grandpa eased onto the porch rocker squeak, matching wind gusts. Diane logged into her old desktop. Internet crawled like molasses, but affidavit templates loaded. "We need witnesses," she muttered. I dialed Trooper Olson's cell, no answer. Left a voicemail requesting a statement about the airport incident. Next, I called the VA clinic. Night nurse Tammy promised a faxed competency note by dawn. Evidence pile began like kindling. At 10:17 p.m., power flickered. Blizzard wind moaned. My laptop battery bled fast. I filmed Grandpa by kerosene lamplight, asking simple yes-no questions. Do you feel safe with Diane and me? Do you want to return to my parents? Each yes or no emerged shaky but audible timestamp blazing. The generator coughed alive. Screen steadied. Diane typed printer spat pages, ink faint but legible. By midnight, we had a dossier an inch thick, secured in a waterproof folder. Still worry gnawed dad-wielded reputation like a knife. Small-town judges often deferred to big city specialists. Exhaustion pulled at my eyelids, but I brewed dark roast mug steaming and stared out the frosted window. Lake Superior lay black, limitless, mirroring the moonless sky, two voids touching. A loon's cry split the dark, lonely, yet defiant. Symbol enough. I turned back. Grandpa had nodded off, photo clasped against chest, steady breaths lifting the wool. Diane whispered, "Get some rest. I'll stand first watch." But headlights flared through tree branches, approaching too soon for sheriff, wrong angle for highway. My heart stalled. Diane killed the lamp. Cabin dropped into shadow. We peered through curtains. A black SUV idled at the drive entrance, engine rumbling like a withheld threat. Its door opened. Someone stepped out holding a flashlight and a thick object clipboard. No tablet screen glowed. Snow, muffled footsteps. I thought of Caldwell's promised transport within the hour. Maybe they'd skipped troopers, hired private medical retrieval. I crept to foyer, grabbed Grandpa's snow boots, pressed finger to Diane's lips. She nodded, understanding the unspoken, get him out if we must. Boards creaked, upstairs guest loft window overlooked a narrow path to the boathouse. Escape plan took shape in my head like sheet music appearing bar by bar. SUV visitor knocked once, twice. "Miss Sanders, County Social Services." Male voice softened by the storm. Diane opened side window an inch. "Show ID?" Flashlight revealed badge logo, but the glare hid name. Court-ordered welfare check. Something felt off, no snow on his shoulders, as if vehicle heat had already dried him. Hired courier, not local deputy. Stall him. I hurried to Grandpa, easing boots over his socks. He woke, disoriented. "Midnight hike," he joked weakly. "Secret adventure," I whispered. He managed a grin. Diane cracked door chain length, clipboard thrust forward. Signature acknowledges transfer. She pretended to study it, asked for pen buying seconds. I guided Grandpa upstairs, each step a creak that could betray us. Loft window stuck. I shoved until ice cracked loose. Bitter wind slapped my face. Below path to boathouse glimmered faint under SUV headlight spill. 30 yards of knee-deep drift. Grandpa's stamina uncertain. Still better than legal kidnapping. I slung a blanket-turned shawl around his shoulders, slipped my arm under his, and together we eased onto the porch roof slope, snow cushioning descent to a woodpile. Behind us, the social worker imposter raised his voice. "Refusal to comply violates judicial order." Diane's reply, drawn calm, floated up, "Order jurisdiction unverified until morning, sir." We shuffled, half-stumbled through drifts, breath pluming. My calves burned, but adrenaline fueled each plunge. Boathouse door stuck. I kicked lower panel latch snapped. Inside smelled of cedar and old gasoline. Canoe upside down on racks. Corner held an ancient snowmobile tarp. I dragged it over us, forming a makeshift igloo. Wind whistled through plank gaps, but we were hidden. Grandpa shivered. I wrapped my coat around his knees, rubbing circulation back. His eyes found mine, clarity shining. "Your father." "Probably," I murmured. He sighed, then chuckled, surprising me. History's full of sieges, kiddo. Defenders usually win by morning. His faith warmed more than fleece. Footsteps crunched near boathouse. Flashlight beam sliced between slats, paused, moved on. Breath held. My phone buzzed, text from Diane. He left. I called trooper. Patrol on way. Stay put. I exhaled tension, melting into bone-deep fatigue. Outside, engine revved, tires spat, snow receded down County Road. Storm quieted to a soft hush, as if the lake itself was listening for our next move. I checked time, 2:03 a.m., 5 hours until courthouse doors unlocked, unknown hours until Dad's next gambit. Distant siren grew blue light, flickered through cracks, Olson's cruiser arriving. Safe to return. Yet leaving hiding felt premature. Dad's network could circle back. I weighed choices when Grandpa tapped tarp ding-ding against canvas. Good stories, he whispered. Still got another chapter. I smiled, wiped snow from his eyebrow. A sudden snap echoed tree limb breaking under ice. No metallic like SUV door again. Light beams swung toward boathouse brighter, closer than before. My heart leapt. The imposter had doubled back, maybe with reinforcements. Multiple lights converge on the boathouse while trooper sirens approach from opposite direction, caught between counterfeit custody and lawful rescue. Zoe must decide whether to stay hidden or make a desperate dash across the frozen lake before dawn. The flashlight beams sliced the gaps in the boathouse wall, jittery and searching. Somewhere behind us, the cruiser siren wailed closer, two worlds about to collide on this dark spit of shoreline. Snow crunched, a voice barked, "Ms. Sanders, we have a transport order, open up." Same man as before, less polite, more desperate. He must have spotted trooper headlights climbing the county road and rushed back to secure his prize before real law arrived. My mind sketched 3 routes. 1, stay hidden and pray Olson reached the cabin first. 2, surrender and gamble the paperwork Warweed prepped. 3, run, use the lake itself as an escape tunnel. I glanced at Grandpa. His breath puffed frost, but his eyes were clear, soldier sharp. "Ice thick enough," he murmured. He'd grown up skating Superior every winter until the Army shipped him to rice paddies. If he believed the lake could hold, maybe faith and physics would align. Another flashlight beam swept the door, seam lingered. Decision crystallized. I yanked the tarp off, exposing the overturned canoe. Not for paddling, its aluminum shell could serve as a sled. I tipped it, snow thudding. "We're ghosting across the bay," I whispered. Grandpa grinned, a kid on a snow day. We wedged ourselves inside knees against ribs. I jammed my boots against the sill, ready to push. Outside, the imposter rattled the latch. Wood splintered. In the same heartbeat, distant sirens whooped, Olson cresting the driveway. The clash bought us seconds. I shoved. The canoe scraped across the packed snow, shot through the opening like a luge. Gravity took over, sledding us down the incline onto the frozen inlet. Ice groaned, a wail song of stress, and then settled. Wind slapped our faces. Cold bit lungs raw. Behind, flashlight arcs flailed. Then a furious shout. They're on the lake. Footfalls pounded, but chasing on foot over glare ice was suicide unless you trusted your cleats. I planted gloved palms on the ice and pushed weight forward, turning the canoe into a human dog sled, thighs screaming but adrenaline muting pain. Lake Superior stretched black and starless, its surface a mosaic of wind-scoured ridges. Each ridge bucked the canoe, jarring Grandpa's spine. He winced, yet tapped the gunwale twice, ding-ding his rally cry. Moonlight pierced clouds, silvering the path like shaker glitter. Symbol or warning, hard to tell. Halfway to the nearest promontory, the old breakwall sirens died, replaced by bullhorn amplification. "This is Trooper Olson. Stop moving and identify." 2 sets of orders from opposite banks. Confusion could get us shot. I angled toward the breakwall, a rock ribbon frozen into the ice natural cover. Behind the imposter's flashlight jittered wildly. He'd ventured onto the lake, risk be damned. A thunderous crack echoed. I felt vibration first, then saw a fissure ribboning toward us, ice protesting our collective weight. Survival reflex screamed, lighten the load. "Bail!" I hollered, rolling out of the canoe, dragging Grandpa onto all fours. The fissure skidded under the aluminum, splitting beneath the chaser's boots instead. He plunged waist-deep, curse swallowed by wind. Water froze him in place, hesitation buying us margin. Olsen's SUV lights now pointed directly at us. He must have driven to the boat launch, tires barely holding traction. A spotlight illuminated our huddled forms. "Zoe, stay still," he yelled, stepping onto the ice with those wide, snow-grip overshoes troopers keep for winter rescues. I raised gloved hands. "He's my grandfather. I have documents." My voice broke, half sob, half proof of life. Olsen approached slowly, scanning for new cracks while his partner assisted the flailing imposter who sputtered about corporate contracts and non-compete clauses, confirming he was no county employee. Within minutes, Olsen wrapped thermal blankets around us and guided us to shore where Diane waited, eyes red but fierce. The imposter sat cuffed in back of a cruiser, expression as brittle as the ice that betrayed him. Olsen radioed dispatch requesting Judge Olsen's on-call number, citing attempted unauthorized removal. A sliver of justice glimmered. The man's overreach might undercut Dad's narrative. Back at the cabin, Olsen lit the wood stove higher and poured emergency cocoa packets into mugs. Grandpa tapped his twice steam, fogging his glasses. Diane and I pieced together the events for Olsen's body cam forged, social service badge, coerced entry, illegal transport. Olsen nodded, then turned to Grandpa. "Mr. Miller, do you wish to remain with your granddaughter tonight?" Grandpa, still wrapped like a burrito, managed a salute. "Until dawn and beyond, sir," statement captured. 2:45 a.m. The imposter was hauled to county lockup. Olsen left 2 deputies parked at our drive engine, idling against cold. Papers were now thicker, our story heavier, yet Dawn Court still loomed like an exam you can't cram for. We slept in shifts, Diane on couch, me on floor, near Grandpa, hand loosely around his wrist so his pulse could steady mine. Outside, the storm eased. The lake, appeased by drama, exhaled a low sigh. At 6:30 a.m., we loaded evidence folder video files on 3 flash drives, and Grandpa in his best wool coat. Diane's Subaru coughed reluctantly, starting. Deputies led our convoy. Civil War-era courthouse in Bayfield looked like a red brick schoolhouse flag snapping above. Reporters' vans already speckled the lot. Dad must have leaked a concern for patient safety story. Cameras swung toward Grandpa's shaky gait. I steadied him head high. Dad and Caldwell stood at steps pristine, rehearsed. Caldwell spied our deputies, frowned. Dad's smile faltered. Inside oak pew benches, radiator heat, the smell of old paper and wet mittens. Judge Olsen Gray, bob wire rim glasses, entered briskly at 9:58. She peered over spectacles, voice crisp. "We are on the record for Miller v. Miller petition for protective placement." Caldwell opened with polished concern, neurologist father-daughter's impulsive behavior. Dangerous lake escapade mere hours ago. She emphasized internet-inspired vigilante care, sprinkling buzzwords like liability, elder endangerment. Dad nodded solemnly, layering theatrical exhaustion. "Our turn." Diane introduced herself, handed up notarized POA VA statements, trooper affidavits, the airport video still of Dad walking away while Grandpa stared at the blank terminal wall. Gasps from gallery. I cued the midnight testimony video. Grandpa's voice filled the room, thin but resolute. "I choose Z because she stays." The loon song of Superior could be heard faintly in background, an accidental soundtrack reminding everyone of Place of Roots. Judge Olsen leaned back, fingers templed. "Dr. Miller, did you indeed leave your father unattended at MSP?" Dad's jaw flexed. "We intended to retrieve coffee," Olsen's affidavit contradicted him. Caldwell objected on relevance, overruled. Olsen turned to Grandpa. "Mr. Miller, do you understand why you're here?" Grandpa rose, steadied by cane courtroom silent. To decide whether love is measured in distance or in deeds, your honor. Murmur ripple. Judge's eyes softened. She requested recess to review. In hallway, Dad approached, voice low but urgent. Zoe, withdraw opposition. I'll fund any college program you want. This circus helps no one. He genuinely looked tired, wrinkles deeper, confidence, hairline fractured. For a heartbeat, the child in me wanted his approval again. Then the memory of that lounge chair flickered like an airport arrivals board. I said, use the money to visit your father after court if he still wants to see you. His shoulders slumped, answer caught in swallow. Bailiff called us back. Everyone stood. Judge Olson resumed ruling, petition denied. Existing power of attorney affirmed. Temporary silver alert rescinded. She admonished all parties to prioritize human dignity over optics. Caldwell moved to appeal. Judge set evidentiary hearing in 30 days, but Grandpa would remain with Diane and me until then, subject to random welfare checks. Gavel struck. Case adjourned. Breath I'd been holding for days finally escaped. Outside, cameras converged. I shielded Grandpa's face with my scarf, his privacy worth more than headlines. Dad gave a curt statement. Family disagreement resolved, then ducked into Caldwell's sedan. No apology today, maybe another lifetime. Snowflakes melted on my cheeks, indistinguishable from tears. Driving back toward Ashland Lake gleamed under sunburst ice crystals, sparkling like 1,000 yes votes from the universe. Grandpa tapped dashboard, twice the rhythm of reassurance, then dozed. Diane turned up public radio blues. Bob Dylan crooned about shelter from the storm. I looked at the horizon, realizing the next 30 days would still be a siege appeals inspections doubt. But sunlight on Superior suggested some battles are won the moment truth sees daylight. Then my phone buzzed with an unknown Twin Cities number. I almost ignored it, then answered on speaker. A trembling male voice, not Dad's, said, Ms. Miller, I'm calling from Twin Cities Memory Haven. Your mother just admitted herself, claims medical exhaustion, and refuses to leave until she sees her father. Diane's eyes widened. I gripped the phone. The caller continued. She's insisting we send transport to bring Robert here voluntarily this evening. What should we tell her? Mom has broken ranks and is staging a new emotional power play from inside the very facility Grandpa escaped. Will Zoe's resolve fracture under maternal guilt, or can she protect her grandfather from a lure wrapped in remorse? A blast of static crackled through the Subaru's speakers as the call held. The Memory Haven clerk repeated, She says she can't leave until her father comes, ma'am. Says it's the only place he'll be safe from, well, all this. The road curled along the shoreline. Sunlight glittered on pan-flat ice, but inside the car, my stomach flipped like a skier missing the landing. Mom had always weaponized softness, bolo tie apologies at PTA meetings, lacquer smile pleas at donor dinners. But checking herself into the very facility Dad wanted felt like a twist straight off a melodrama storyboard. Diane kept her eyes forward, yet tightened her grip on the wheel. Even she felt the undertow. I inhaled, aiming for calm, and asked the clerk for a direct line to Mom's room. He patched me through. 1 ring, 2. Her voice emerged huskier than usual, like mascara stains turned to sound. Zoe. Thank God. I can't keep up anymore. Your father's obsession, the attorneys, the cameras. A soft sob. For a beat, I almost forgot the terminal lounge, the forged transport order, her silence during it all. Almost. Why the facility, Mom? I asked. Because it's neutral ground, she whispered. He deserves professional monitoring, but with family nearby. If I'm here, nobody can say we're abandoning him. The phrase landed crooked. Abandoning was precisely what they'd practiced. Bring him, sweetheart. 1 night supervised. We can talk like a family. My pulse gave a warning throb, pity's first knock. Grandpa stirred in the back seat, half awake. Radio off, he muttered. I reached and lowered Dylan's crooning. Mom continued. Judge Olson lifted the alert. That means cooperation now, not hiding in cabins. Her words scraped old wounds, recasting our rescue as shame. I pressed speaker so Diane could hear. Mom went on. If you refuse, reporters will run the hermit granddaughter angle. Your scholarship donors, your future employers, do you want them seeing that headline? There it was, the reputation shiv. Diane flicked her blinker, pulled into a lakeside overlook. Wind rocked the car. She whispered, "Choice is yours, kiddo, but manipulation wears a fancy coat." I thought of Grandpa tapping mugs of the ice fisher that nearly swallowed us because a hired gun valued contracts over care. Yet something in Mom's voice sounded less rehearsed fear, maybe. I asked for proof she was truly inside. She passed the phone to a nurse who confirmed Catherine Miller had been voluntarily admitted for exhaustion evaluation and was cleared to host family in the observation lounge tonight. Visiting hours until 9. Mom reclaimed the line, "Please, Zoe, if you want him loved, let me show it." The call ended on her ragged inhale. Silence filled the Subaru until the heater clicked. Trapped Diane asked, "Maybe I said," or last chance for her to remember who she was before gala trophies. Court appeal still hung 30 days away. Any goodwill now could turn a judge's head later. But Memory Haven was Dad's territory neurology partners on advisory board donors he'd charmed for MRI grants. I imagined him pacing some marble foyer crafting new narratives. Still, the judge's admonition echoed dignity over optics. If dignity meant giving Mom room to repent under cameras of our choosing, it might strengthen our hand. We drove the rest of the way under a sky bleaching to pale zinc. At the cabin, Grandpa napped while Diane and I unpacked layers of strategy. We'd bring 2 body cams, one clipped to Grandpa's coat lapel, another on my parka collar live streaming to cloud storage. We'd notify Trooper Olson request a welfare escort inside the facility. Wisconsin statutes allowed it if elder intimidation feared. Olson texted back a thumbs up and promised a uniformed deputy at the door 7 p.m. for visibility. Next, we printed extra POA copies and laminated them, no more shuffling through envelopes like stage props. Finally, I emailed Judge Olson's clerk a courtesy note voluntary visit this evening. Safety measures in place, transparency guaranteed. At 5, we coaxed Grandpa into the Subaru again, dusk bruising the horizon. He seemed lucid, joking about our rock and roll tour schedule. We crossed the state line. City lights haloed above fresh snowbanks. Memory Haven rose from a hill, sleek glass-curved cedar panels, trying to look like a spa instead of a waiting room for memory's end. Deputy Ramirez waited near the revolving door badge glinting amber. Inside, lavender oil sighed through vents. A receptionist led us to the observation lounge, soft chairs, winter forest mural, a wall of one-way glass overlooking the memory ward. Mom sat alone at a round table, paper cup between trembling hands. She looked smaller, hair pulled into a loose braid instead of her usual shellacked bun, mascara washed off. Vulnerability suited her like morning light on an unused ballroom, beautiful and sad. Grandpa shuffled forward first. "Katie Bird," he said, using her childhood nickname. She rose, eyes flooding, and hugged him cautiously, as if afraid to break bone or illusion. The moment skewered me. Their last embrace I'd witnessed was perfunctory, perfumed with impatience. Now she clung like shoreline after a storm. Diane remained by the door, arms folded, scanning exits. Body cams captured everything, Mom guiding Grandpa to a chair, brushing crumbs from his scarf as though mending lost time stitch by stitch. For 10 minutes, conversation floated, gentle Grandpa recounting Superior's sunrise. Mom listening, voice quavering. Then the lounge door opened and Dad walked in alone. No counsel. White coat shed dark sweater fatigue rings under eyes. "Catherine called me," he said quietly. Deputy Ramirez tensed, but I nodded. We'd expected his arrival. Dad approached. Grandpa knelt so they were eye level, a pose he used with stroke patients learning to speak again. "Dad, I hurt you," he said, words grainy. I thought saving you meant hiding decline. I forgot saving starts with seeing. Grandpa looked confused, then weary. Doctors fix hearts, Johnny, he murmured, tapping his own chest. But love fixes remembering. Dad's composure cracked. Tears welled. Cameras caught every drop. A guard outside signaled visiting hours' final 15-minute call. I glanced at Diane. She shrugged, let conversation play. Dad turned to me. I can't undo that lounge, he said. But I can end the war. Withdraw the appeal, drop every petition sign, any care plan you two design. I searched his face for angle, found only exhaustion and maybe surrender. Mom placed her hand on his. I told him the gala board voted him down after the airport footage leaked. Reputation is toast, honey. She almost smiled, a sad acceptance. Dad nodded. I don't need applause, just forgiveness. My instinct flared suspicious. Apology after public shaming can feel like PR triage. Yet Grandpa tapped cup ding-ding approval or just muscle memory, hard to parse. Deputy Ramirez's radio crackled snow front moving in fast county roads icing. We had to decide accept truce and drive home in whiteout or hold line and risk roads closing anchoring Grandpa overnight under Dad's roof. I reached for laminated POA ready to hold boundaries when Memory Haven's fire alarm shrieked. Sprinkler heads blinked red. A recorded calm voice requested orderly evacuation. Staff hustled wheelchairs into hall. Visitors pressed to walls. Chaos ballooned. A nurse tried guiding us toward south stairs, but deputies funneled people north. Confusion split groups. In seconds, Dad, Mom, and Grandpa were swept with nurse cluster toward one stairwell, while Diane, the deputy, and I jostled the opposite flow. Smoke, no, just alarm strobes, but the separation yawned like ripped fabric. I shouted, "Stay together," my voice drowned in siren whoops. On the landing, a steel fire door slammed between us. Auto locks engaged. I tugged, it wouldn't budge. Through the inset window, I glimpsed Dad steadying Grandpa, Mom gripping handrail. A security officer waved them downward out of sight. Deputy Ramirez radioed control fire door C shut. Need override. Static. Hall filled with chemical haze, maybe from a triggered extinguisher canister. My lungs burned. Diane coughed, but kept filming. Finally, control answered. False alarm. Suspected system reset in 4 minutes. Hold positions. Yet 4 minutes felt colossal when every second widened the corridor between narratives, one where Dad shepherded Grandpa outside in a heroic arc, cameras ready, another where we emerged as the reckless grandchildren losing track of our elder inside a fire drill. I pounded the door again. No response. The stairwell swallowed their absence like the lake did moonlight. 3 minutes. 2. Alarm cut mid-blare. Lights steadied. Doors clicked open. We barreled down but reached lobby too late, crowd-thick emergency lights reflecting off glass exterior. Outside, snowflakes already swirling, ambulances flashing just for drill safety. I searched faces, tourists, staff, residents with blankets, but not Dad, not Mom, not Grandpa. Diane scanned opposite flank, shook head, lips, pale. A memory tech jogged by. I grabbed his elbow, showed Grandpa's photo. He pointed to the east loading dock. We sprinted, boots sliding on new snow. At the dock, a medical transport van idled, rear doors closing. Inside, I glimpsed the curve of Grandpa's navy cardigan sleeve. Dad stood beside the driver, signing a tablet. Mom hovered, tearful but resolute. I yelled. Engine revved over my voice. Deputy Ramirez shouted, "Hold it," while keying mic for backup. The van lurched forward, tires spitting slush, turning downhill toward the interstate ramp before squad cars blocked exit lanes. Dad has whisked Grandpa away in a facility transport under cover of a false alarm highway. Icing fast and night falling, can Zoe outpace the storm, the law and her own shaking faith to intercept before Grandpa disappears into a locked ward forever. Deputy Ramirez slammed his cruiser into drive. Diane vaulted into the Subaru. I dove into the front seat beside the deputy body cam still streaming to the cloud. Snowflakes the size of nickels spiraled in the flood lamps, turning the parking lot into a snow globe that someone furious was shaking. The transport van's taillights, 2 red smears swung onto the downhill service road, tires fishtailing across fresh powder. Dispatch crackled in our ears. Unit 7, pursuit authorized. Be advised, Lakeshore ramp to I-535 just closed for plow activity, vehicle will divert County A. County A hugged the water like reckless handwriting on an envelope. Ice drift piled against guardrails, and one bad skid would pitch metal straight onto Superior's frozen skin. Ramirez punched the accelerator. The cruiser lurched, traction control blinking panic. I clutched the dashboard, breath fogging glass. Ahead, the van's hazard lights now strobed Dad, signaling plows to part. I dialed Trooper Olson's speakerphone bare. On their 6, Ramirez barked. Olson responded 2 miles out, setting a spike strip at the old iron bridge. My pulse hammered, triple 40. Behind us, Diane's headlights weaved Subaru tires chewing ruts. We cleared the last suburban glow. Darkness swallowed everything but reflectors and our own adrenaline. I texted the live stream link to every journalist who'd pinged my inbox since the court ruling captioned Doctor Who abandoned father, now snatching him again, live. Retweets exploded across the screen. Public eyes were the only insurance bigger than Dad's influence. Ramirez's spotlight caught the van's bumper facility logo and a thin film of salt. Driver pull over, he commanded through PA. No response. Mom's silhouette appeared in the back window, palm pressed to glass, pleading or warning, hard to tell. Then brake lights flared. The van jerked right onto a scenic turnout, snow-choked, unplowed. Tires spun, van slewed sideways and stopped inches from the overlook's guardrail. Beyond it, a sheer drop to the ice-covered bay, wind whipping spindrift into low clouds. We skidded in behind emergency bar strobes, bathing pine trunks blue-red. Ramirez drew breath, radio open, Unit 7 stand by. I threw my door wide before protocol could chain me. Snow knifed my cheeks. "Dad," I shouted. He exited, driver side hands up, but voice steely. "He's hypothermic, Zoe, pulse irregular. We need controlled environment, not roadside theatrics. No siren bluster, just the clinical bark that once ruled ORs." My gut twisted bluff or genuine danger. Mom stepped out passenger door, tears streaking mascara she swore off hours earlier. "He's pale, honey. Let your father handle this." I edged closer, scanning Grandpa through the van's rear windows. He slumped in gurney restraints, cardigan sagging, head bobbing. Olson's cruiser fishtailed into the turnout, blocking exit. He exited, hand on holster but unsnapped. Dr. Miller, engine off, keys on roof. Dad complied, snow dusting his hair. "Patient in distress," he argued. Olson nodded to me. I opened the rear doors. Heated air gusted out, flavored with antiseptic. Grandpa's lips were bluish. His breath came shallow whistles. Cardiac arrhythmia. Altitude stress from the chase. Dad stepped forward. "Let me run vitals. You love him, don't make pride lethal." Pride. The word stung like sleet. I glanced at Olson. He gave a tight nod. I was still legal agent. Decision mine. I climbed in, fingers searching Grandpa's wrist. Pulse rapid, thready. "He needs warmth, steady ride," Dad insisted. Nearest ER 20 minutes south. Snow intensified. Plow radio on Olson's belt warned whiteout within 10. I faced Dad across the gurney. "You drive ahead under escort. We follow. One deviation and the world sees it." I raised my phone. Thousands were watching. Dad swallowed, nodded. But destiny never respects compromises. A low groan shuddered beneath us, the ice shelf below the turnout shifting under wind pressure. Ramirez yelled, "Everybody! Clear the edge!" Too late. The van's rear tires lost purchase. Weight shifted, chassis lurched against the guardrail that was never meant to halt ambulances. Metal squealed, bolts popped like popcorn. Dad lunged to the driver's seat, slammed it in park, but gravity had new plans. The rail buckled, rear wheels drooped over nothingness. The van teetered like a seesaw stuck on breath. Inside Grandpa's eyes fluttered open confusion melting into fear. Storm's loud. "Tonight," he whispered. I braced gurney straps while snowflakes powdered his hair. "Hold on, coach." Olson and Ramirez rushed with tow straps hooking front axle to the cruiser hitch, but ice under the cruiser cracked 2 spiderweb fractures glowing under patrol floodlights. Wind howled, snatching Mom's sob. Diane skidded up flung open Subaru hatch rope and old life vest miracles in nylon. Dad crawled into the cargo bay, pressed stethoscope to Grandpa's chest face, blanching. Irregular AFib. If his core temp drops 2 more degrees, he may arrest. He might be right. Choices shrank, drag Grandpa out, risk jarring his heart, leave him, risk plunge. I looped rope around my waist, past end to Diane, anchored on Subaru tow hook. Ramirez tightened winch cable to cruiser. Tension sang like guitar string. Every tweak felt like dice with the lake. I caught Grandpa's gaze. "You trust me?" He mustered half tap on my wrist. Ding. Agreement sealed. Dad and I unlatched gurney from floor. Vehicle rocked. Ice moaned. Olson shouted count of 3. We heaved. Gurney wheels stuck, then rolled, then jammed at the threshold as snow packed beneath. Mom pushed from outside. Tears froze into crystals. For one suspended instant, the entire van pitched aft. Rear bumper dropped a foot. Abyss yawned. I saw, in white-blue flash reflection of my own terror in Dad's eyes, 2 perfectionists, suddenly pilgrims before nature's church. Cable taut, rope straining, we slid gurney onto turnout wheels crunching ice. Cruiser groaned, but held. Diane and Mom guided Grandpa toward Subaru's rear where heat blasted. Dad collapsed against fender, shaking. Sirens wailed a new ambulance from Ashland weaving through snow. Safety seconds away. Then the impossible, a logging semi unseen in the blizzard, barreled around the bend, jackknifed on black ice trailer, skidding sideways toward the turnout like a guillotine of steel and fair logs. Its headlights carved madness through the flurry. Ramirez screamed orders. Olson fired a flare, but momentum ignored human pleas. I yanked Grandpa's gurney, but rope caught under tire. Diane stumbled. Mom froze. Dad turned eyes wide as surgical lights. The semi roared closer, air horn, drowning wind, 20 tons of inevitability about to erase everything we'd fought for through lounges, buses, courtrooms, and frozen bays. And that, friends, is where I'm going to leave you, 1 heartbeat before metal meets destiny, before love and legacy collide with raw physics. Will a family finally unite to save its elder, or will pride and ice write the last chapter? You'll have to come back to find out.